"They buried that woman yesterday," a little girl told a millionaire with a missing wife. Comment saying what you thought of this story, giving it a score from 0 to 10, and tell me what city you're watching me from. I really want to know if you liked my story, and I want to get to know you better. So subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The midday sun beat down on the streets of Bridgeport as Arthur Miller taped another poster to the peeling wall of the bakery on Maple Avenue. His hands trembled slightly as he smoothed the edges of the paper that bore the smiling face of Eleanor, his wife who had been missing for 3 weeks. At 52, the owner of a construction supply business never imagined he would be walking the streets like a traveling salesman, but this time he was offering hope instead of goods. "Have you seen this woman?" he would ask every person who passed, his voice hoarse from repeating the same phrase. Most shook their heads with pity and moved on, but Arthur persisted. Eleanor had left home on a Tuesday morning, claiming she was going to the supermarket, and simply vanished. She took no clothes, withdrew no money, left no notes. It was as if she had dissolved into the hot city air. As he walked along Fairfield Avenue, Arthur felt the weight of his mother-in-law Beatrice's disapproving gaze, who considered this public search a needless humiliation. "A woman who runs away wants to be gone," she had said the night before, with that harsh voice of hers that always scorned Eleanor for her humble origins. Beatrice never forgave her son for marrying a woman who had grown up on the outskirts of Bridgeport, working as a cleaner until she met Arthur in a supply store where he was buying cement for a job. The businessman stopped at a traffic light, wiping the sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. His company, Miller Construction, had prospered over the last 10 years, allowing him to offer Eleanor a comfortable life in their large house in the Green Pastures neighborhood. 12 employees depended on him, important contracts awaited his attention, but none of that mattered now. Each day without news of Eleanor was like a wound deepening in his chest. It was as he was crossing State Street that a small voice made him stop. "I saw that lady," said a thin girl, about 4 years old, pointing to the poster in his hands. She wore a dirty t-shirt and mended shorts, her bare feet covered in dust. Her brown hair was tangled, but her large, dark eyes shone with a surprising intelligence for someone so small. Arthur crouched down to her level. "Where did you see this woman, honey?" "Over at the cemetery," the girl replied, pointing in the direction of Greenwood Cemetery. "The men were burying her in a shiny box. I was sleeping behind the chapel when they came with the shovels." Arthur's heart raced. "What men? What did they look like?" The girl frowned, concentrating. One was fat and sweating a lot. The other was thinner and kept looking around. They were talking quietly, but I heard them say no one would look there. "What's your name?" "Lily," she said, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "My mom, Denise, left me here a long time ago. She said she was coming back, but she didn't." Arthur felt a pang in his chest. An abandoned child, a witness to something that could be the nightmare he was trying to avoid imagining. "Lily, are you sure it was this woman?" he asked, showing the picture of Eleanor again. The girl studied the image for a few seconds. "She used to bring me food sometimes. She said I was special and that one day I'd have a real family. She was very pretty, just like in the picture." Arthur's legs weakened. Eleanor brought food to street kids. How did he not know this? "When was the last time you saw her?" "About 3 weeks ago. She brought a sweet roll and said she might be gone for a while, but that I should be strong." Lily looked down. "I thought she had forgotten about me, like my mom." Arthur took the girl's small, dirty hand. "Lily, can you take me to the place where you saw the men burying the box?" The child nodded and started walking towards the cemetery. As he followed her, Arthur felt a mix of terror and hope coursing through his veins. If Eleanor was really dead and buried there, at least he would know the truth. But if she was alive, where could now she be? And why did a street girl know his wife better than he did? Greenwood Cemetery stretched out silently under the scorching sun. Lily led Arthur along the dirt paths between the graves, her steps small but determined. She knew every corner of that place, every tree that offered shade, every chapel where she could hide from the rain. "Over there," she said, stopping in front of a small mound of freshly moved earth with no headstone or identification. "This is where they buried the shiny box." Arthur knelt and touched the earth with trembling hands. The soil was loose, definitely disturbed recently. His world began to crumble as he stared at that small mound that could hold his wife's remains. The afternoon fell heavy on Bridgeport when Arthur finally managed to convince the cemetery administrator to open an investigation into the unmarked grave. 3 days of insistence, calls to the police department, and Lily's persistent presence by his side had been necessary for anyone to take the words of a street child seriously. "Mr. Miller, I need you to understand," said Detective Evans, a short, chubby man who constantly cleaned his glasses. "We can't just dig up graves based on a miner's testimony, but considering the circumstances of your wife's disappearance." Arthur held Lily's hand tightly as they watched the cemetery workers dig at the spot the girl had indicated. The child had insisted on accompanying him during these 3 days, sleeping at the door of his company, refusing to leave his side. When Arthur asked where she lived, Lily would vaguely point to the streets, explaining that she slept in different places each night. "Uncle Arthur," she said, pulling on his shirt. That's what she had spontaneously started calling him. "Do you think the pretty lady is hurt?" Arthur knelt beside her. "I don't know, Lily, but we're going to find out, okay?" The sound of shovels hitting something solid made everyone fall silent. The gravediggers exchanged significant glances before continuing more carefully. Minutes later, a small wooden box was lifted from the earth, measuring about 3 feet long by 1.5 feet wide. "It's smaller than I expected for a coffin," the detective murmured. Lily squeezed Arthur's hand. "That's the box, Uncle. The shiny one the men brought." With trembling hands, Arthur watched as the box was carefully opened. Inside, neatly arranged, were clothes. He recognized immediately the blue dress Eleanor had worn on her last birthday, her favorite shoes, the brown bag she carried every day, and her jewelry, including her wedding ring. "There's no body," said the detective, frowning. Arthur picked up the dress with trembling hands. It still carried the soft perfume Eleanor always wore. "This makes no sense. Why would someone bury just her clothes? Maybe to fake a death," the detective suggested, "or to throw off an investigation." Lily pulled on Arthur's shirt again. "Uncle, I remembered something else. The men talked about a place with lots of plants. A place where the pretty lady was hidden." "What place, honey?" They said a difficult name. Sounded like farmhouse. The detective jotted everything down as Arthur tried to process the information. If Eleanor was alive and hidden on some farmhouse, why had she staged her own death? And how had a 4-year-old child become the sole witness to this mystery? When they returned to Arthur's house at the end of the day, he found Beatrice waiting in the living room with an expression of disapproval that cut through the air like a blade. "Arthur, what is this nonsense of bringing a street girl into our home?" she said, watching Lily with disdain. "Have you completely lost your mind over this whole story?" Beatrice, Lily knew Eleanor. "She might have important information," Arthur explained, too tired for an argument. "Information? This child is clearly making up stories to get attention. Anyone can look at a photo and say they know the person." Lily hid behind Arthur, intimidated by the lady's harsh voice. "Uncle, she doesn't like me," she whispered. "Don't worry about it," Arthur said, picking her up. "You're going to have dinner with us, and then we'll find a safe place for you to sleep." "Arthur, be sensible," Beatrice insisted. "You have responsibilities. Your company is being neglected. Your employees are worried. You can't just abandon everything for a child who appeared out of nowhere." It was true. Arthur had missed work for the last 3 days, leaving his office in the care of Sarah, his secretary. Important contracts awaited his signature, suppliers called constantly, but he couldn't focus on anything but finding Eleanor. During dinner, Lily ate voraciously, as if it were her first decent meal in days. It probably was. Between bites, she recounted more details about her encounters with Eleanor. "She always brought food for the kids who sleep near the bus station," Lily said. "She had a big bag with bread, fruit, and sometimes even toys. She said all children deserved affection." Arthur almost choked. How often did she go there? Every week, sometimes twice. She would talk to us, ask if we were okay, if anyone had hurt us. Lily paused to drink some water. Once she brought blankets when it was really cold. "Why did you never tell me this, Eleanor?" Arthur muttered to himself. "She talked about you," Lily continued. "She said she had a very good husband who worked building houses for people. She said you didn't know about her visits because you were always so busy." Guilt hit Arthur like a punch to the gut. How many times had he come home late, absorbed in spreadsheets and contracts, barely asking about Eleanor's day? How many times had she tried to tell him about her projects, and he had changed the subject to talk about work? "Uncle Arthur," Lily said, touching his arm, "are you sad?" "A little, honey, but it's not your fault." After dinner, Arthur prepared the guest room for Lily, but she refused to sleep in a bed enclosed by 4 walls. "I can't sleep in a closed place," she explained with tears in her eyes. "I have nightmares when I can't see the street." Arthur ended up improvising a bed on the back porch, where Lily finally managed to fall asleep, always facing the gate that led to the street. He watched her for a long time, thinking about how such a small child had developed so many survival mechanisms. During the night, Lily woke up screaming. Arthur ran to the porch and found her huddled in a corner, trembling. "What is it, honey?" "I dreamed about the bad men," she sobbed. "They were looking for me and the pretty lady. They wanted to hurt us." Arthur picked her up and sat in the porch chair, rocking her gently. "You're safe here. No one is going to hurt you. Promise?" "I promise." As Lily fell back asleep in his arms, Arthur looked up at the stars and wondered how his life had changed so much in just 1 week. 7 days ago, he was a successful businessman with a predictable routine. Now he was caring for an abandoned girl who had become his only clue to finding his missing wife. The next morning, the phone rang early. It was Sarah, his secretary. "Mr. Miller, you need to come to the office urgently. Some strange bills have arrived. Loans in your name that aren't in our accounting." Arthur's stomach dropped. "What kind of loans?" "High amounts, sir. And there are people here who want to talk to you. They say it's about Mrs. Eleanor's debts." Arthur looked at Lily, who was quietly eating breakfast, and felt that the mystery was just beginning to unfold. The office of Miller Construction had never seemed so small and suffocating. Arthur walked in the main door with Lily by his side, who had refused to stay at home with Beatrice. The girl observed everything with curiosity, her large eyes scanning the walls covered with certificates and photos of completed projects. Sarah, a 45-year-old woman who had worked with Arthur for 8 years, ran to meet him with a stack of papers in her hands and a worried expression on her face. "Mr. Miller, I'm so glad you're here. There are 3 men waiting in the conference room for over an hour. They said they won't leave without talking to you." "What men?" One of them introduced himself as Gerald Bishop. He said Mrs. Eleanor took out loans using the company as collateral. Sarah lowered her voice. "The documents look legitimate, sir. It has her signature and even a notary's seal." Arthur felt the blood run cold in his veins. "How much?" $250,000, sir, with accrued interest." Arthur's legs gave way. It was almost half the company's net worth. "That's impossible. Eleanor would never do something like that without consulting me." Lily pulled on his shirt. "Uncle Arthur," You're unpale. It's okay, honey. He knelt beside her. Lily, I need you to stay here with Sarah while I talk to these men. Can you do that for me? The girl hesitated. Are you coming back? I will, I promise. Sarah extended a hand to Lily. Come with me, sweetie. I have some candy at my desk. Arthur took a deep breath before entering the conference room. 3 men were sitting around the mahogany table he had bought the previous year when business was booming. The man in the center, presumably Gerald Bishop, was exactly as Lily had described. Fat, sweating profusely, with a smile that didn't reach his small, dark eyes. Mr. Arthur Miller, I presume, said Gerald, rising with difficulty from his chair. We finally meet. I'm Gerald Bishop, from Bishop Financial. I've never heard of your company, said Arthur, remaining standing. Of course not. We work more discreetly. Your wife came to us 6 months ago needing a considerable sum urgently. She offered your company as collateral. Gerald pushed a folder towards Arthur. All documented, as you can see. Notarized signature, guarantor, real collateral. Your wife was very convincing when she explained that you were traveling and had authorized the transaction. Arthur flipped through the documents with trembling hands. The signature was unmistakably Eleanor's, but something about the whole situation bothered him deeply. What did she need so much money for? It's not our business to question the use of the money, Mr. Miller. Our responsibility is to collect what was loaned. Gerald's smile grew colder. And the deadline was last week. My wife has been missing for 3 weeks. I didn't even know about this debt. A shame, said the thin man sitting to Gerald's right, but that doesn't change our situation. The debt is yours, Mr. Miller, and we want our money, and if I don't have it, the third man, who had remained silent, spoke in a hoarse voice. Everyone has it, Mr. Miller. It's just a matter of proper motivation. The threat was subtle, but clear. Arthur thought of Lily in the next room, of his company, of his employees who depended on him. I need time to sort things out, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Of course, said Gerald, standing up. You have 1 week. After that, we'll have to take measures to recover our investment. After the men left, Arthur was left alone in the conference room, staring at the documents scattered on the table. How had Eleanor gotten them into such a situation? And where was she now that he needed answers the most? Sarah appeared at the door with Lily by her side. Mr. Miller, is everything all right? No, Sarah. Nothing is all right. He picked up Lily. I need you to cancel all my appointments for this week. I have to resolve this situation. On the way back home, Lily was quiet. Sensing Arthur's tension, she only spoke when they were arriving. Uncle Arthur, one of those men, was at the cemetery that night. Arthur slammed on the brakes. What? The thin man. I remember his face. He was with the fat man when they buried the shiny box. Arthur's heart pounded. Are you absolutely sure? I am. I never forget the faces of bad people. Now the pieces were starting to fit together in a disturbing way. Gerald and his men weren't just creditors. They were directly involved in Eleanor's disappearance. But why? And where was she now? At home, Beatrice was waiting for him with more overdue bills piled on the kitchen table. Arthur, more late notices arrived. It seems Eleanor was spending much more than you had. She picked up a paper from the pile. Look at this. $15,000 in donations to a children's shelter that doesn't even exist. $10,000 to some Hope Support House. Your wife was throwing money away. Arthur examined the bank statements. There were indeed regular transfers to entities he had never heard of. How did you get these statements? I went to the bank. I'm your emergency proxy, remember? I wanted to check for any strange activity. Lily pulled on the hem of Arthur's shirt. Uncle, can I say something? Of course, honey. The pretty lady used to talk about a house where they took care of kids like me. She said she would take me there to visit one day. Beatrice snorted. See? This girl is making up stories to take advantage of your kindness. I'm not making it up. Lily protested, with tears in her eyes. The pretty lady was very good. She took care of us. Arthur knelt beside Lily. I believe you. Can you tell me more about this house? It's far from here, the pretty lady said. There were lots of kids there, and they all had beds to sleep in and food every day. She would take money for them to buy things. The realization hit Arthur like a bolt of lightning. Eleanor wasn't spending money irresponsibly. She was funding a social project for abandoned children. But where had she gotten so much money? And why had she resorted to dangerous loan sharks? That night, after Lily finally fell asleep on the porch, Arthur locked himself in his home office and began to investigate the bank statements meticulously. What he discovered left him even more confused. The transfers to the charitable entities had started 8 months ago, always on the same day of the month. Always large amounts, which clearly exceeded the family income. Eleanor had been withdrawing money from an account he didn't know about, an account she had apparently opened without his knowledge, but most disturbing were Eleanor's handwritten notes in the margins of the statements. 15 kids this month. Need more blankets. Lily needs new clothes. Lily. Eleanor didn't just know the girl casually. She was specifically looking after her and many other children. She had created a whole support network that Arthur had never suspected existed. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was an unknown number. Hello? Mr. Miller? The voice was female, nervous. I heard you're looking for Eleanor. My name is Clara. She helped me a long time ago. How did you get my number? Eleanor left instructions. She said if anything happened to her, I should look for you. I need to meet you urgently. It's about where she is. The meeting with Clara was set for late afternoon in a discreet diner in downtown Bridgeport. Arthur arrived with Lily, who had once again refused to stay at home. The girl had developed an emotional dependence on him that worried him, but at the same time it touched him deeply. Clara was a woman of about 30, thin, with visible scars on her left arm and a look that carried the weight of someone who had been through difficult situations. When she saw Lily, her eyes filled with tears. My God, Lily, you've grown so much, she said, kneeling to hug the girl. Aunt Clara. Lily ran into her arms. You know my Aunt Clara, Uncle Arthur. Now I do, said Arthur, watching the interaction with curiosity. Clara, you said you have information about Eleanor. Clara sat at the table, still holding Lily's hand. Mr. Miller, your wife saved my life, and the lives of many other women. Eleanor created an informal support network for women fleeing violent relationships and for abandoned children. A network? 2 years ago, I ran away from my ex-husband who beat me every week. I had nowhere to go, no money. Eleanor found me sleeping in the park with my 2-year-old daughter. She took us to a safe place, paid for a small room until I could find work. Arthur felt like he was meeting a completely different Eleanor from the woman he shared a bed with every night. Where is this place? There are several places, rented apartments around the city, a larger house on the outskirts. Eleanor funded it all with her own money. Clara paused. At least until a few months ago. What happened a few months ago? The demand grew too much. More women started arriving, more children. Lily was one of the last to arrive about 8 months ago, when her mother just disappeared. Lily lowered her head. Mommy Denise said she was going to buy cigarettes and never came back. Clara stroked the girl's hair. Eleanor was especially worried about the children. She said every child deserved a family, a safe home. But where did the money come from to support all this? Asked Arthur, though he already suspected the answer. At first, she used her own income. Then she started taking out small loans. But when the situation grew too big, Clara hesitated. She turned to loan sharks. Gerald Bishop. He offers easy money to those who are desperate, but then charges impossible rates. Eleanor knew she was getting into a dangerous situation, but she couldn't abandon the people who depended on her. Arthur felt a mix of pride and frustration. Pride for Eleanor's generosity, frustration that she hadn't shared the weight of this responsibility with him. "Clara, do you know where Eleanor is now?" The woman looked around nervously before answering. "She's hiding in an abandoned farmhouse near Millfield. Gerald and his men found out about her projects and are using it to pressure her to pay the debts. They threatened to hurt the children if she didn't pay everything. That's why she staged her own death." "Exactly. She hoped that if you thought she was dead, Gerald would stop pursuing the family and the children would be safe." Lily pulled on Arthur's shirt. "Uncle, is the pretty lady okay?" "Physically, yes," Clara replied. "But she's suffering a lot. She misses home, misses you," she said, looking at Arthur. "And most of all, she's desperate to know if Lily is okay." Arthur felt the weight of the revelation. Eleanor had sacrificed everything, her marriage, her safety, her very identity, to protect vulnerable people. And he, absorbed in spreadsheets and contracts, hadn't even noticed. "How can I find her?" Clara hesitated again. "It's dangerous. Gerald has men watching. If they find out you know where she is, I don't care about the danger. I need to talk to my wife." "And I want to see the pretty lady," said Lily, with surprising determination for a 4-year-old. Clara took a small piece of paper from her purse. "Write down this address, but go alone first, if it's a trap." "Clara, can I ask you something?" Arthur folded the paper carefully. "Why are you helping me? Why risk your safety?" Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Because Eleanor gave me a second chance at life. Today I have a decent job. My daughter is in a good school. We have our own apartment. All because your wife believed in me when no one else did." When they got back home, Arthur found Beatrice going through Eleanor's things in the bedroom. "What are you doing?" "Organizing her things. If she's really dead, you'll need to get rid of these clothes." Beatrice was holding Eleanor's favorite dress. "I never liked this dress. Too simple for the wife of a businessman." "Put everything back in its place," said Arthur with a firmness that surprised even himself. "Arthur, you need to be practical. This obsession with her disappearance is destroying your professional life." "My professional life?" Arthur laughed bitterly. "Beatrice, I found out today that my wife was supporting dozens of people in need while I was only concerned with profits and contracts. Which one of us was living a life with purpose?" Beatrice snorted. "Purpose? She was squandering the family's assets to support bums and criminals." "Those people aren't bums," shouted Lily, surprising everyone. "The pretty lady took care of us because no one else did." "See what you've turned this house into," said Beatrice. "A street child yelling at me in my own home." "This isn't your house," said Arthur, picking up Lily to comfort her. "And Lily isn't just any child. She's part of the family now." "Family?" Beatrice laughed with disdain. "Arthur, you've completely lost your sense of reality. This girl will be gone as soon as the proper authorities take care of her." "I'm not leaving," shouted Lily, clinging to Arthur's neck. "Uncle Arthur promised he wouldn't abandon me." Arthur looked at Beatrice with a determination he hadn't felt in years. "You're right about one thing. I lost my sense of reality. I lost my sense of what really matters in life. But now I'm getting it back." That night, after Lily fell asleep on the porch, Arthur stayed awake, planning how he would get to the farmhouse where Eleanor was hiding. He knew he was risking everything, his company, his safety, maybe even his life. But for the first time in years, he felt he was doing something truly important. At 2 a.m, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Mr. Miller?" The voice was Gerald Bishop's, but there was something different in the tone. "It seems you've been asking questions about your wife." Arthur's blood ran cold. "How did you get my private number?" "I have many resources, Mr. Miller, and many ways of getting information." Gerald paused. "I heard you're taking care of a special child. Little Lily, isn't it? What do you want?" A conversation. Tomorrow noon at the warehouse on Dock Street. Come alone and bring the girl. I'm not exposing a child to danger. Mr. Miller, Gerald's voice grew colder. You're in no position to make demands. Your wife owes us a lot of money. And that child, well, she saw things she shouldn't have seen. The call ended, leaving Arthur alone with the growing terror that he had completely underestimated the situation he was in. The morning arrived, heavy as lead over Arthur's house. He had spent the night awake, watching Lily sleep peacefully on the porch, knowing that in a few hours he would have to make the most difficult decision of his life. Taking the girl to the meeting with Gerald would expose her to danger, but not going could be even worse. "Uncle Arthur, you didn't sleep," Lily said when she woke up, rubbing her eyes. Even at 4, she had developed a keen perception of the adults' moods around her. "I was thinking, honey, about the pretty lady, among other things." Arthur knelt beside her. "Lily, I need you to be very brave today. We're going to meet some men who might have information about where Eleanor is." The girl's eyes widened. "The bad men from the cemetery, maybe, but I'll protect you, I promise." Lily nodded seriously. "I'm brave. The pretty lady always said I was the bravest of all the kids." At 11 in the morning, Arthur received an unexpected call from Sarah. "Mr. Miller, there's a man here at the office who says he's a private investigator, Lionel Vance. He says he was hired by your mother-in-law to investigate Mrs. Eleanor's disappearance." Arthur's stomach tightened. "Beatrice hired an investigator?" "Yes, sir. He wants to talk to you urgently. Says he's discovered important things. Tell him I—" "No, wait. Ask him to meet me at Cathedral Square in half an hour." Arthur hung up the phone and looked at Lily, who was playing with a doll he had bought for her the day before. Another complication in a situation that was already impossible to control. The meeting with Lionel in the square was both revealing and disturbing. The investigator was a short, thin man of about 50, with a graying mustache and eyes that seemed to see beyond appearances. "Mr. Miller, your mother-in-law hired me because she believed you were being tricked by a child," Lionel began, watching Lily play nearby. "But my investigations revealed that the situation is much more complex." "What did you discover?" "Your wife was indeed involved in undeclared charitable activities. I found at least 15 people who confirmed receiving regular help from her. Women at risk, abandoned children, families in extreme poverty." Arthur felt a mix of pride and sadness. "Continue. But I also discovered that Gerald Bishop isn't just an ordinary loan shark. He has connections with dangerous people, and he uses information about your wife's social projects to blackmail other influential people in the city." "How so?" "He documents everyone your wife helps, especially women fleeing violent husbands. Then he uses that information to blackmail the ex-husbands, local businessmen, politicians. It's an extortion racket." Lily ran up to them. "Uncle Arthur, that man over there has been staring at us for a long time." Arthur followed the girl's gaze and saw a thin man leaning against a tree on the other side of the square. It was the same man who had been in the office with Gerald. "Lionel, we need to get out of here now." "Why?" "Because we're being watched." The three of them quickly headed for Arthur's car, but the thin man followed them at a safe distance. During the drive to a cafe in another neighborhood, Lionel continued his reports. "Mr. Miller, I discovered something else. Your wife wasn't just spending money on social projects. She was being blackmailed." "How?" "Gerald found out that one of the women she helped was the wife of an influential councilman. He threatened to expose the situation if Eleanor didn't pay increasingly larger amounts." Arthur felt anger rising in his chest. "That's why she took out the loans." "Exactly. She went into debt to protect vulnerable people from being publicly exposed. But with each payment, Gerald increased his demands." "And where is she now?" Lionel hesitated. "I have a lead, an abandoned farmhouse near Millfield. But, Mr. Miller, it's a trap. Gerald wants you to find her." "Why?" because then he has control over both of you. He can use your love for your wife to ensure the debts are paid. Lily pulled on Arthur's shirt. Uncle, it's almost noon. Weren't you going to meet the bad men? Arthur looked at his watch. He had 15 minutes to get to the warehouse on Dock Street. Lionel, I have to go to a meeting now. Can you look after Lily? Mr. Miller, don't go to that meeting alone. I have no choice. Then take this. Lionel handed him a small digital recorder. Record everything. If something happens to you, at least we'll have evidence. The warehouse on Dock Street was an abandoned building that smelled of mold and old machine oil. Gerald was waiting for Arthur at the entrance with the same cold smile as their previous encounters. Mr. Miller, punctual as always. And where is our little witness? Lily isn't coming. This is between us. A shame. The girl has an impressive memory for details. That could be problematic. Gerald led Arthur into the warehouse where two other men waited in the shadows. The atmosphere was intimidating, claustrophobic. Let's get straight to the point, Mr. Miller. Your wife owes us $300,000 with accrued interest. Your deadline has passed. I don't have that kind of money. Of course you do. Your company is worth that and much more. I'm willing to accept the full transfer of your construction company as settlement of the debt. Arthur felt the floor give way beneath his feet. That would leave 12 families without jobs. Management problems are not my responsibility. And if I refuse, Gerald moved dangerously close. Then I'll have to use less conventional methods to recover my money. And that would include making sure certain people, especially children who saw things they shouldn't have, don't cause future problems. The threat against Lily made Arthur's blood boil. Leave the girl out of this. The girl has been in this since the moment she decided to open her mouth at the cemetery. Gerald smiled cruelly. But I have a proposal. If you sign over the company today, I'll ensure your wife and the child remain safe. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't, but it's your only option. Arthur looked around the dark warehouse, thinking of Lily waiting for him, of Eleanor hiding in a farmhouse, of his employees who trusted him. All the people he loved were being used as pawns in a cruel game he didn't even know existed. I need 24 hours to organize the papers, he said finally. 12 hours, Gerald retorted. And Mr. Miller, if you try anything smart, like going to the police or running away with the girl, the consequences will be irreversible. When Arthur left the warehouse, he felt as if he had aged 10 years in an hour. In the car, he turned on the recorder Lionel had given him and realized he had recorded the entire conversation. Maybe he had a chance to get out of this situation, but he would need help. Arthur found Lionel and Lily in a small cafe downtown where the girl was eating a cheese sandwich while drawing birds on a paper napkin. When she saw him arrive, her eyes lit up, but she soon realized something was wrong. Uncle Arthur, you look like you've been in a fight, she said, abandoning her colored pencil. I'm fine, honey. He sat heavily in the chair beside her. Lionel, I need your help. The situation is worse than we imagined. The investigator listened intently as Arthur recounted the meeting with Gerald, his impossible demands, and the threats against Lily. When Arthur showed him the recorder, Lionel nodded in approval. This is enough evidence to prosecute Gerald for extortion and threats. But the problem is, he has Eleanor as a hostage. If we go to the authorities, he could hurt her, Arthur finished. Lily, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. Uncle Arthur, I remember more things about that night at the cemetery. What things, honey? The fat man was on the phone with someone. He said an address. I memorized it because I thought the name was funny. Lionel leaned forward. What address? Three Brothers Farm. Coffee Road, number 1847, Millfield, Lily repeated with impressive accuracy. He said the special merchandise was being kept there. Arthur and Lionel looked at each other. Lily's exceptional memory had just given them Eleanor's exact location. Lily, are you absolutely sure? I am, Uncle. I never forget numbers. The pretty lady always said I was very smart with numbers. Lionel made a few notes. Mr. Miller, I know that area. It's an isolated rural area, perfect for keeping someone hidden. But it will be guarded. Then we'll need a plan, said Arthur, feeling a spark of hope for the first time in days. That afternoon, while Lily slept on the couch in Lionel's office, the two men carefully planned the rescue operation. The investigator had called a friend, John Bryant, a former military man who worked in private security. The farm is 2 hours from here, John explained, spreading maps on the table. Difficult access, only one road in and out. If they're keeping your wife there, it's because they don't want visitors. How many men do you think Gerald has guarding the place? Asked Arthur. 2 or 3 at most. He can't draw too much attention in a rural area, Lionel replied. The problem, John continued, is that any move we make could put your wife at risk. They'll use her as a shield if they realize we're coming. Lily woke up during the conversation and approached the table with the maps. Can I see? Arthur picked her up. We're planning to go get Eleanor. The girl studied the map with intense concentration. Uncle, I know this place. How? The pretty lady took me there once, a long time ago. There's a small house behind the big house, and there's a hole in the back fence where the kids used to go through to pick fruit. John became interested. What hole? In the wire fence on the side with the coffee plantation. The pretty lady said it was dangerous, but sometimes she let us go through. Lily, said Lionel, could you show us where this hole is? The girl nodded enthusiastically. I can. I remember everything. No, said Arthur firmly. I'm not exposing Lily to danger. Uncle Arthur, said Lily with surprising seriousness, I want to help save the pretty lady. She always protected me. Now it's my turn to protect her. Arthur looked at the 4-year-old child who spoke with the determination of an adult. How had someone so small developed so much courage and loyalty? It's too risky. Mr. Miller, said John with all due respect, the girl might be our only chance to get to your wife without being detected. If she knows an alternative entrance... No. Lily freed herself from Arthur's lap and stood on the chair. Uncle, you promised you wouldn't abandon me, remember? So now I promise I won't abandon the pretty lady. That night, after much debate, they reached an agreement. Lily would guide them to the farm's alternative entrance, but would stay with John in a safe position while Arthur and Lionel tried to rescue Eleanor. Meanwhile, Beatrice had found out about the plans through phone conversations she had overheard. Arthur, this is madness, she shouted when he got home. You're going to get into a dangerous situation for a woman who clearly isn't worth it. How can you say that about your own daughter? My daughter got into trouble by her own choice. She could have had a quiet life with you, but she preferred to play savior of the world. Eleanor was helping people who needed it. That's admirable, not condemnable. And now you're putting all of us at risk, including an innocent child, to save someone who caused all these problems. Arthur looked at Beatrice with a mixture of pity and anger. You never understood Eleanor. You never understood that her kindness was genuine, not a performance. Kindness? Beatrice laughed bitterly. Kindness is taking care of your own family first, not squandering the family fortune to help strangers. The people Eleanor helped weren't strangers to her. They were suffering human beings, and that's more important than any fortune. That night, Arthur packed his bags discreetly. He had decided to take Lily to a hotel until the situation was resolved. He could no longer expose her to the hostile environment Beatrice was creating. Uncle, are we running away? Asked Lily when he woke her gently. We're moving temporarily to a place where you'll feel safer. And then we're going to save the pretty lady. Then we're going to save the pretty lady. At the hotel, Lily fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the tension of the last few days. Arthur stayed awake in the armchair, watching her sleep and thinking about how his life had completely changed in less than a month. 4 weeks ago, he was a businessman focused only on profits, living a comfortable but empty life next to a wife he barely knew. Now, he was ready to risk everything to save this extraordinary woman who had dedicated her life to helping others. And he had grown deeply attached to an abandoned girl who had become the center of his attention. His phone vibrated with a text message from Gerald. "Mr. Miller, your time is running out. I hope you've made the right decision. For your family's sake." Arthur looked again at Lily sleeping peacefully and made his final decision. The next morning, instead of signing over the company, he would be on his way to Three Brothers Farm to rescue Eleanor. It was a risky plan that could cost him everything he had built in his life. But for the first time in years, he was doing something that truly mattered, and if everything went right, he would have back not only his wife, but a real family that included a brave little girl who had transformed his understanding of what it meant to love unconditionally. The journey to Three Brothers Farm began before dawn. Arthur drove in silence while Lily dozed in the back seat, clutching the doll he had bought for her. Lionel and John followed in the car behind, keeping a safe distance so as not to draw attention. When they reached the outskirts of Millfield, the sun was already rising on the horizon, painting the sky in orange hues that contrasted with the tension hanging over the group. Lily woke up naturally and observed the rural landscape with interest. "Uncle Arthur, I remember this road," she said, pointing to a curve ahead. The pretty lady always stopped at that roadside stand to buy candy for the kids. Arthur followed Lily's direction and saw a small roadside grocery with peeling walls and a rusty metal sign. It was the kind of place that would go unnoticed by anyone, but that a hungry child would remember forever. "Is it much further, honey?" "Not much. After the big curve, there's a broken sign that says Three Brothers, but you can only see the letters 3. The precision of Lily's memory continued to impress Arthur. It was as if every detail of this region was permanently etched in her mind. 20 minutes later, they found the exact sign Lily had described. John signaled for them to stop in a wooded area out of sight of the main road. "We'll go on foot from here," said the ex-military man, checking his equipment. "Lily, are you sure you can lead us to the alternative entrance?" The girl nodded with determination. "I can, but we have to be careful of the dog. He barks a lot when he sees strangers." "What dog?" asked Arthur, alarmed. "A big mutt that roams free on the farm. He's friendly, but he barks at everything. The pretty lady always brought him bones." John and Lionel exchanged worried glances. A barking dog could compromise the entire operation. "Is there any way to get around the animal?" asked Lionel. Lily thought for a few seconds. "If we go along the river, he won't notice us. He stays more on the side of the main house." They walked in silence through the dense woods surrounding the property. Lily guided the group with surprising confidence, occasionally stopping to check landmarks that only she could identify. A tree with a specific shape, a set of rocks, a small stream that cut through the region. "There," she whispered after. A 40-minute walk, pointing to a barbed wire fence, almost hidden by vegetation. "The hole is just after that bush." There was indeed an opening in the fence, large enough for a child to pass through easily, but which would require the adults to crawl carefully. On the other side of the fence, they could see the farm. It was an old, poorly maintained property, with a 2-story main house and several smaller buildings scattered across the land. The smaller house Lily had mentioned was about 200 yards behind the main one, partially hidden by fruit trees. "John, you stay here with Lily," Arthur instructed. "If anything goes wrong, take the car and leave immediately." "No," said Lily firmly. "I'm going with you. You might get lost. It's too dangerous." "Uncle, I know this farm better than you do. If the pretty lady is in the small house, only I know which room she used to stay in." Lionel weighed the situation. "The girl is right. Without her, we could waste time looking in the wrong place." Against all his instincts, Arthur agreed to let Lily accompany them, but only to a safe point from where she could guide them. They crossed the grounds in silence, taking advantage of the cover of the trees. The property seemed abandoned, with tall grass and dilapidated buildings. But as they approached the smaller house, they saw recent signs of occupation. Clothes hanging on a makeshift clothesline and a small tended garden. "This is it," Lily whispered. "The pretty lady stays in the room with the blue window." Arthur followed the girl's gaze and saw a window painted a faded blue on the second floor of the small house. There was a closed curtain, but faint light filtered through the edges. "How are we going to get up?" asked Lionel. "There's a wooden ladder on the left side," said Lily, "but it creaks a lot." John checked the ladder and confirmed that it was in poor condition, but usable. "I'll go up first. If it's really Eleanor, I'll signal you." The ex-military man climbed slowly, testing each rung before putting his full weight on it. When he reached the window, he carefully peeked through a crack in the curtain. He gave a thumbs up. Arthur's heart pounded. Eleanor was there just a few feet away, after almost a month of desperate searching, when John came. "Down," he whispered. "It's her. She's alone in the room, but she looks weak. There are signs she was held there against her will. Guards. I didn't see anyone in the small house, but there's movement in the main house." Arthur started climbing the ladder, eager to see his wife after so long. When he looked through the window, he had to control the emotion that rose in his throat. Eleanor was sitting on a simple bed, thinner than he remembered, with disheveled hair and wrinkled clothes. She was staring blankly at the wall, with an expression of deep sadness that broke Arthur's heart. He tapped lightly on the window. Eleanor turned quickly, startled, but when she recognized him, her eyes filled with tears. "Arthur," she whispered, rushing to the window. "Eleanor, I came to get you. How did you find me? It's too dangerous. Gerald has men watching. A very special person helped me get to you." Arthur signaled downwards, where Lily was hidden behind a tree. When Eleanor saw the girl, she started to cry. "Lily! My God, is she okay? Where has she been all this time? With me? She was taking care of me as much as I was taking care of her." The emotional reunion was interrupted by a noise coming from the main house. John urgently signaled for Arthur to come down. "Someone's coming," he whispered. Arthur looked at Eleanor again. "Does the window open?" "Yes, but it's warped. Try to open it. We're getting you out of here now." Eleanor forced the old window until she managed to open it partially. The space was tight, but enough for her to pass through. "Be careful with the ladder," Arthur warned, holding her firmly as she climbed down. When Eleanor reached the ground, Lily ran into her arms. "Pretty lady, I knew you were alive." "My dear," sobbed Eleanor, hugging the girl. "You've grown so much. I missed you so much." The emotional reunion was again interrupted by John, who had spotted two men leaving the main house and walking towards the small house. "We need to leave now," he said, already leading the group towards the fence. They ran through the woods, with Lily guiding the way even in the growing twilight. Behind them, they heard shouts and the dogs barking, indicating that their escape had been discovered. "This way," whispered Lily, leading them. Through a shortcut only she knew. They managed to reach the cars without being caught, but they knew that Gerald would soon find out that Eleanor had fled. And when that happened, his fury would be terrible. "Arthur," said Eleanor in the car, still holding Lily, "there are things you need to know about why I did all this, about why I didn't tell you the truth." "It doesn't matter now," he replied, driving quickly down the dark road. "The important thing is that we're together again." "But it does matter," she insisted, "because it's not over yet. Gerald won't give up, and there's something about me, something you don't know yet." The hotel where they took refuge was in a small town an hour from Millfield, far enough to feel temporarily safe. Arthur had booked 2 adjoining rooms, while Lionel and John stood guard in the parking lot, watching for any suspicious movement. In the room, Eleanor finally had a chance to tell her side of the story. Lily slept on the bed next to them, exhausted from the day's adventure, occasionally murmuring in her sleep. Eleanor couldn't stop looking at the girl, gently touching her hair as if she needed to confirm she was really there. "Arthur, I never wanted it to come to this," she began, her voice hoarse from so many tears. "When I started helping the women and children, it was just a small thing. A few meals, a place to sleep for a night. Why did you never tell me?" Eleanor looked down, ashamed. "Because you were always so busy with the company, always talking about growth, profits, expansion. I was afraid you'd think I was wasting money." "Eleanor, you completely underestimated me, I know, and I regret it every day." She held his hand, but the situation started to grow. More people in need arrived, more complicated cases, women fleeing violent husbands, abandoned children like Lily. Arthur looked at the sleeping girl. "How did you find her?" "She was sleeping in a cardboard box behind the central market. It was winter, it was raining. I couldn't just walk past." Eleanor caressed Lily's face. She didn't speak for 3 days. She just cried and asked for her mother. And the mother, Denise, a drug addict. She abandoned Lily to live with a dealer in another city. I tried to find her, but... Eleanor shook her head. "Some people just can't be saved. But you tried to save everyone. I tried, and that led me to make desperate decisions." Eleanor took a deep breath. "When the money from our account wasn't enough, I looked for loans from traditional banks, but they required collateral that I couldn't provide without your signature. So you went to Gerald. He presented himself as a legitimate businessman. He said he helped people with social projects. At first, the amounts were small, the interest rates reasonable, but then he found out you were vulnerable." Eleanor nodded. "He started investigating the women. I was helping. He found out that some were fleeing from important men in the city, and then the blackmail started." "What kind of blackmail?" "He threatened to publicly expose where these women were hiding if I didn't pay increasingly larger amounts. He said he would sell the information to their ex-husbands or to whoever paid the most." Arthur felt anger rising in his chest. "He was using your kindness against you, and it worked. Because I couldn't let those women be found by the men who threatened them. Some had small children, Arthur, babies who could be hurt. That's why you took out the loans in the company's name. I was desperate. Gerald said that if I didn't pay off the debts in a week, he would not only reveal where all the women were, but he would also hurt Lily to teach me a lesson." Eleanor's voice broke as she said those words. Arthur hugged her, feeling the weight of the responsibility she had carried alone for months. "That's why you faked your own death. I thought that if you all thought I was dead, Gerald would stop pursuing the family, and the women and children I was helping would be safe. But you didn't count on Lily having seen everything." Eleanor looked at the sleeping girl. "She was always very observant, always noticed things that adults missed." She paused. "There was something else, Arthur. Something that made the situation even more complicated." "What?" Eleanor hesitated for a long moment before answering. "I'm pregnant." Arthur's world stopped. He was silent for several seconds, processing the information. "Pregnant? How long have you known?" "I found out the week before I disappeared. That's why I was so desperate to resolve the situation with Gerald. I couldn't expose our baby to danger." Arthur felt a wave of contradictory emotions. Joy at the prospect of being a father, anger that Eleanor had faced it all alone, and terror at the implications of the situation. "Eleanor, why didn't you tell me at the time?" "Because you were under so much stress with the company, and because I was afraid you would get even more worried and make rash decisions." "Rash decisions? Like saving my wife and protecting my child?" "Gerald made it clear that if you got involved, the consequences would be worse. He said he had ways of destroying not just our financial life, but our physical life as well. At that moment, Lily stirred in her sleep and opened her eyes. "Pretty lady, are you crying?" Eleanor quickly wiped away her tears. "I'm fine, honey. They're tears of joy because I'm with you all." Lily sat up in bed. "Uncle Arthur, is the pretty lady going to stay with us forever now?" Arthur looked at Eleanor and then at Lily. "We're going to stay together, yes. The three of us." "The four of us," Eleanor corrected softly. "Four," Lily counted on her fingers. "Me, you, Uncle Arthur, and who else?" Eleanor smiled for the first time since their reunion. "You're going to have a little brother or sister, Lily." The girl's eyes widened. "For real? A baby? For real?" Lily jumped out of bed and hugged Eleanor. "I'm going to teach him everything. How to find food, how to hide when there's danger, how to draw little birds." The innocence of Lily's reaction made Arthur and Eleanor laugh for the first time in weeks. But the joy was interrupted by urgent knocks on the door. "Arthur, it's me, Lionel, we have a problem." Arthur opened the door to find the investigator with a worried expression. "Gerald found out where we are. There are cars approaching the hotel. How did he find us so quickly? He probably tracked our phone or has contacts on the road. We need to leave now." Eleanor picked up Lily. "Where can we go? John is preparing an alternate route, but we need to split up to confuse them." "No," said Arthur firmly. "We're not separating again." "Uncle Arthur," Lily said suddenly, "I know a place where we can hide. A place the fat man will never find." "What place, honey?" "Aunt Clara's. A house. She has a secret basement where she's hidden other people before." Lionel considered the suggestion. It could work. Gerald wouldn't know about that connection. Just then they heard the sound of cars pulling into the hotel parking lot. Through the curtains they could see men getting out of the vehicles and heading towards the reception. "Back exit," John whispered over the radio. "Now." They left the hotel through the emergency exit, carrying only the essentials. Lily held tightly to Arthur and Eleanor's hands, as if she could keep them together through her own willpower. As they ran through the darkness towards the cars parked on a parallel street, Arthur realized that his life had become a constant escape. But for the first time since this whole situation began, they were running away together. And that made all the difference. Clara's house was in a simple neighborhood on the outskirts of Bridgeport, a modest building that would go unnoticed by anyone. When they arrived in the middle of the night, she welcomed them without asking any questions, as if she already knew this day would come. "The basement is safe," she said, leading them down a narrow staircase. "I've hidden 5 families here over the years. It has ventilation, a bathroom, and even a small kitchen." The underground space was larger than they expected, divided into 2 small but comfortable rooms. Clara had transformed the place into a true safe house, with beds, cabinets, and non-perishable food. "You can stay here as long as you need," she said, "but we need to think of a permanent solution. Gerald won't give up." Lily explored the basement with curiosity, testing the sturdiness of the secret staircase and checking all possible exits. Even at 4, her survival instincts remained sharp. "Clara," said Eleanor, hugging her friend, "how can I ever thank you for everything you're doing? You saved my life and my daughter's. Now it's my turn to repay you." For the next 3 days, they lived in constant tension. Lionel kept in touch through prepaid phones, updating them on Gerald's movements around the city. The loan shark had mobilized more men and was systematically searching for them. "He broke into your company's office," Lionel reported in a call. "He smashed everything, looking for clues. Your employees are terrified." Arthur's heart ached at the thought of Sarah and the other employees who depended on him. "Are they safe?" "For now. But Gerald made it clear that if you don't show up to negotiate, he'll make their lives impossible. I can't let innocent people pay for this." "Arthur?" "No," said Eleanor, holding his arm. That's exactly what he wants. For you to turn yourself in to protect others. So what do we do? Hide forever? It was Lily who provided the unexpected answer. The girl had been listening to the adults' conversations, absorbing information with her impressive ability to understand complex situations. "Uncle Arthur," she said, pulling on his shirt, "I remember more things. About the bad men." "What things, honey?" "That night at the cemetery they talked about other places, places where they keep money and important papers." Lionel was immediately interested. "What kind of papers?" "Papers with the names of people who owe money, and photos of people they don't want anyone to find." "Lily," Arthur said carefully, "do you remember where this place is?" The girl closed her eyes, concentrating. They said, "The warehouse on the Iron Street." And they said a number, 285. Clara knew the place. "It's an abandoned warehouse on Railroad Avenue. I know where it is. If we can get access to those documents," said Lionel, "we might have enough evidence to incriminate Gerald and his entire operation." "It's too risky," Eleanor protested. "More risky than living on the run forever?" asked Arthur. That night, while Eleanor and Lily slept, Arthur and Lionel planned an operation to investigate the warehouse. John had obtained surveillance equipment and tools to force locks. "The ideal would be to go during the day, when there's less chance of guards on site," said John. "But there's also more movement on the street, and if we're discovered, then we'll have bigger problems than loan shark debts," Lionel replied grimly. The next morning, Lily woke up from nightmares. She was screaming in her sleep, reliving scenes from the cemetery and the farm. Eleanor comforted her, but the child was clearly affected by the stress of the situation. "Pretty lady," Lily sobbed, "I don't want the bad men to hurt you and the baby. No one is going to hurt us, honey. We're protected here. But they're very bad. They do ugly things to people." Eleanor exchanged worried glances with Arthur. What other things had Lily witnessed that she hadn't yet told them? "Lily," Arthur said gently, "did you see the men hurting anyone?" The girl hesitated before nodding. "At the farm, they beat a woman who tried to escape. She was crying a lot." "What woman?" "A young lady who was in a room near my hiding spot. She had a small baby." Arthur and Eleanor looked at each other, horrified. Gerald wasn't just involved in loan sharking and blackmail, he was holding people prisoner. "Lily, was that woman still there when you rescued me?" "I think so. I heard the baby crying when we were leaving." The revelation completely changed Arthur's perspective on the situation. It was no longer just about saving his family and paying off his debts. There were other victims who needed to be rescued. "Lionel," he said, determined, "change of plans. We're going to that warehouse today. And then we're going back to the farm." "Arthur, that's crazy," Eleanor protested. "It's crazy to leave a mother and a baby in the hands of that man. If we, who have resources and help, do nothing, who will?" Clara, who had overheard the conversation, offered to help. "I know other people Gerald has hurt. If you can really get evidence against him, a lot of people will be willing to testify. It's dangerous for you to get involved. Eleanor taught me that sometimes we have to take risks to do what's right, and this is one of those times." That afternoon, as they prepared for the operation at the warehouse, Lily asked a question that made everyone reflect. "Uncle Arthur, after you catch the bad men, will I still live with you?" The question revealed the girl's greatest fear, that after they solved the situation, she would be alone again. "Lily," said Arthur, kneeling beside her, "do you want to keep living with us?" "I really want to. You're my real family now. Then you'll stay with us forever, no matter what happens." Eleanor held Arthur's hand. "And when the baby is born, you'll be the big sister. You'll teach him everything just like you promised." Lily smiled for the first time in days. "I'll teach him not to be afraid of the bad men, and to find good people like you." As the afternoon wore on, and the time for the operation approached, Arthur felt they were about to cross a point of no return. If they got the evidence against Gerald, they could finally get their lives back, but if they failed, the consequences would be devastating for everyone he loved. He looked at Eleanor, pregnant and brave, at Lily, so small yet so strong, and made his final decision. It was time to stop running and start fighting. The warehouse at Railroad Avenue number 285 was exactly as Lily had described, an abandoned shed with peeling walls and broken windows, surrounded by a vacant lot full of tall weeds. Arthur, Lionel, and John arrived in the middle of the afternoon when street traffic was minimal. "I don't see any external guards," John murmured, looking through his binoculars, "but this could be a trap. Or Gerald feels safe enough not to need constant surveillance," Lionel replied. Arthur double-checked the digital recorder in his pocket. This time, he wasn't just documenting threats. He was about to collect evidence that could destroy Gerald's entire criminal operation. Getting into the warehouse was surprisingly easy. The lock was rusty and quickly gave way to John's tools. The interior, however, revealed a much more sophisticated operation than any of them had imagined. "My God," whispered Arthur, looking at the meticulous organization of the space. The warehouse was divided into clearly defined sections. One area contained files organized in dozens of metal drawers. Another section had modern computers and communication equipment. A third area was dedicated to what appeared to be parallel accounting, with stacks of cash in different currencies organized in open safes. "This isn't a common loan sharking operation," said John. "It's a full-fledged criminal enterprise." Lionel began photographing the documents with a discreet digital camera. The files revealed the true extent of Gerald's activities: blackmail against local businessmen, trafficking of personal information, industrial-scale loan sharking, and something that made everyone's blood run cold. "Arthur, you need to see this," called Lionel, holding a thick folder. The documents showed a systematic scheme of kidnapping and false imprisonment. Gerald kept people, mainly women and children, in captivity as a way to pressure family members to pay debts or comply with demands. "Here it is," said Arthur, finding a file with Eleanor's name. "He's been planning this for months." The file detailed not only the debts incurred by Eleanor, but also personal information about her routine, the social projects she funded, and most importantly, a list of the people she helped, including Clara and other women who had fled violent situations. He was using Eleanor as an unwitting source of information about vulnerable people, Lionel realized. But the most shocking discovery was in a separate section, photographs of an operation at the farm where Eleanor had been held. The images showed at least 8 different people being held in captivity, including the woman with a baby that Lily had mentioned. "We need to call the authorities immediately," said John. "Not yet," Arthur replied, furiously photographing more documents. "First, we need to ensure we have enough evidence so he can't escape on legal technicalities." It was when they found the financial records that the true magnitude of the operation was revealed. Gerald was moving millions of dollars monthly, with connections that extended far beyond Bridgeport, reaching other cities in the state and even neighboring states. "He has contacts in the police," said Lionel, showing a list of monthly payments to officers. "That's why he can operate so openly." "And he has judges on his payroll too," John added, pointing to another document. Arthur's stomach sank. They were facing not just a common criminal, but a network of corruption that had infiltrated the very institutions that were supposed to protect people like Eleanor and Lily. "How are we going to report this if he has important people protecting him?" "We have to find someone clean," said Lionel. "And with this evidence, we can take the case directly to the federal prosecutor's office." Just then, they heard the sound of cars approaching the warehouse. Through the broken windows, they saw 3 vehicles parking in front of the building. "A trap," John murmured. "They knew we were coming here. How?" "They probably watched Clara or intercepted our communications," Arthur quickly stuffed the most important documents into a backpack. Is there a back exit? Yes, but they've probably already surrounded the building. Indeed, when they tried to leave through the back door, they found two armed men waiting for them. They were forced back inside the warehouse, where Gerald was already waiting with his characteristic cruel smile. "Mr. Miller, what an unpleasant surprise to find you here," said the loan shark, accompanied by 5 men. "Especially on private property, meddling with documents that don't belong to you. These documents prove you're a criminal. These documents prove I'm a successful businessman, and you are trespassers who will be dealt with accordingly." Gerald approached Arthur. "Where are your wife and that inconvenient child?" "Far from you, I doubt it. People like you can't stay away from each other for long. It's a weakness I can always exploit." One of Gerald's men whispered something in his ear. The loan shark's smile widened. "Apparently my men have just located the house where you're hiding. How convenient." Arthur's heart stopped. Clara, Eleanor, and Lily were in danger, and he was trapped here, unable to protect them. "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted, Mr. Miller, my money. But now the price has gone up considerably. Not just your company, but also your permanent cooperation." "What kind of cooperation?" "You're going to work for me. Your company will serve as a front for money laundering operations, and your wife will continue her social projects, but this time providing me with information on everyone she helps. I will never turn Eleanor into an informant for your blackmail schemes. It won't be her choice, nor yours." Gerald signaled to his men, "Take these 3 to the farm. We're going to have a very interesting family reunion." As they were led out of the warehouse, Arthur managed to send a quick text message to Clara. "Run, now, meet us at the place Lily knows." He hoped Clara would understand the reference to Lily's original hiding spot near the bus station. It was the only chance for Eleanor and the girl to escape before Gerald got to them. In the car, as they were taken back to the farm that had become the center of all their nightmares, Arthur realized he had completely underestimated the enemy they were facing. Gerald wasn't just a violent loan shark. He was a crime boss with a protection network that made official justice almost useless. But there was one thing Gerald had also underestimated: the determination of a 4-year-old girl who had survived on the streets and developed survival instincts that could be the key to defeating this entire criminal operation. If Lily could guide Eleanor to safety and then find a way to alert the right authorities, maybe there was still hope. But first, Arthur would have to survive whatever Gerald was planning to do with him at the farm. Clara received Arthur's message at the exact moment she saw 2 dark cars approaching her street. She didn't hesitate for a second. "Eleanor, Lily, we're leaving now!" she shouted, running down to the basement. "What's happening?" asked Eleanor, picking up Lily. "They found out where we are. Arthur sent a code. You need to go to the place Lily knows." Lily understood immediately. "The bus station, where I used to sleep." They left through the back of the house just as Gerald's men broke down the front door. Clara knew the neighborhood streets well and guided them through a maze of alleys and back streets that kept them invisible to their pursuers. "Aunt Clara, are you not coming with us?" asked Lily when they reached the point where they had to separate. "I need to stay and mislead them, make them think you're still in the area." Clara hugged them both. "Take care, and Lily, take good care of the pretty lady and the baby." "I will," the girl promised seriously. The hiding spot Lily had chosen was in an abandoned area behind the bus station, where empty shipping containers created a labyrinth of secret passages that only the street kids knew. For years, this had been Lily's home, and she knew every corner, every emergency exit. "This way," she whispered, guiding Eleanor through a narrow opening between 2 containers. "No one can find us here." The space inside was surprisingly comfortable. Lily had created a small home with blankets she had found, cans for storing food, and even some makeshift toys. On the container wall, dozens of colorful bird drawings showed the girl's artistic evolution over the months. "Lily, you lived here alone all this time?" asked Eleanor, moved. I wasn't alone. I had the cats, the birds, and sometimes other kids stayed here too. And you came to visit me. Eleanor hugged the girl, feeling guilty for not being able to get Lily off the streets sooner. You'll never have to live like this again, honey. I know. I have a real family now. While they waited for news from Arthur, Lily showed an impressive maturity. She organized rations of food she had hidden in the container, created warning signals for different types of danger, and taught Eleanor how to move silently through the metal labyrinth. "Pretty lady, are you feeling sick?" asked Lily, noticing that Eleanor was pale. "It's just the baby. Sometimes I feel nauseous." Lily disappeared for a few minutes and returned with green leaves she had collected. "My mom used to make tea with these leaves when she was pregnant with me. Said it helped with the nausea." "Where did you learn that?" "By watching. I always watch how people solve problems." That night, while Eleanor finally managed to sleep, Lily stayed awake, on guard. At 4 years old, she had developed the ability to sleep for only a few hours and wake up automatically at the slightest suspicious noise. It was during one of these vigils that she heard something that made her heart race. Footsteps approaching the containers and voices whispering instructions on how to conduct a systematic search. "Pretty lady," she whispered, shaking Eleanor gently. "They're here." Eleanor woke up immediately, her maternal instinct alerted by the girl's urgent tone. "How many?" "At least 3. They're searching container by container. Is there an exit they don't know about?" Lily nodded. "There's a tunnel that connects this container to the sewer. It's gross, but they'll never think of it." "Show me." Lily removed some loose boards on the container floor, revealing a narrow opening that led to the city's storm drains. "I've used this path many times to escape from bad people. Lily, are you sure it's safe for a pregnant woman?" "It's safe. It's just a little tight at the beginning." They climbed down through the makeshift tunnel at the exact moment Gerald's men reached the container where they were hiding. From inside the sewer, they could hear the frustrated voices of their pursuers when they discovered the empty hiding spot. "They were here," said a harsh voice. "The things are still warm. Search the surroundings. They can't have gone far." Lily led Eleanor through the underground tunnels with the confidence of someone who knew every stone of the path. They emerged in a distant industrial area where few people circulated, even during the day. "Now what do we do?" asked Eleanor, wiping the tunnel mud from her clothes. "We're going to find Uncle Arthur." "Lily, it could be dangerous. He might be in a trap." "Then we need to help him. Family helps family." The girl's determination was unshakable. At 4 years old, Lily had developed an intuitive understanding of loyalty and courage that constantly impressed Eleanor. They walked through the city for hours, Lily using her knowledge of the streets to avoid areas where Gerald might have men watching. When they got near Arthur's company, they saw that the building was under surveillance. "They're waiting for us to show up there," Eleanor observed, "but I know another place where Uncle Arthur might be," said Lily. "The bad place where they take people." "The farm?" "Yes. If they caught Uncle Arthur, that's where they took him." Eleanor hesitated. Going back to the farm meant walking straight into the lion's den. But leaving Arthur in Gerald's hands was unthinkable. "How are we going to get there without being seen?" "I know a way. There's a truck that goes to the farms every morning. The driver is nice. He gave me food a few times." The next morning, hidden in the back of a rural supply truck, Eleanor and Lily traveled back to the region where it had all begun. The irony was not lost on Eleanor. She was voluntarily returning to the place from which Arthur had risked everything to rescue her. "Pretty lady," said Lily during the trip, "I have an idea to save Uncle Arthur." "What idea?" "The bad men don't know that I remember where they keep the keys and phones. If I can get a phone, I can call for help. It's too risky." "More risky than letting the bad men hurt our family?" Eleanor looked at this extraordinary child who had faced abandonment, hunger, cold, and danger, but had never lost her ability to love and protect those who mattered to her. "Okay," she said finally, "but we do this together. I'm not letting you face this alone. Thank you for trusting me, pretty lady. Thank you for teaching me what true courage means." When the truck stopped to unload at a neighboring farm, they jumped out discreetly and walked through the coffee fields until they saw Three Brothers Farm. This time they weren't running. They were coming back to fight, and Lily, at 4 years old and with a determination greater than many adults, would be the key to saving the entire family she had chosen, and that had chosen her back. Three Brothers Farm was busier than last time. Eleanor and Lily watched from a distance, hidden among the coffee plants, counting at least 8 men circling the property. Gerald had clearly increased security after the previous escape. "Pretty lady, look over there," whispered Lily, pointing to the smaller house. "There's a woman in the window with a baby in her arms." Eleanor followed. The girls gazed and saw a thin young woman looking desperate, trying to calm a crying child. It was the same woman Lily had mentioned before. "How many people do you think are trapped here?" "A lot. The last time I came with the pretty lady, she counted at least 10 women and 5 children in different houses." The revelation shocked Eleanor. Gerald's operation was even bigger than they imagined. He wasn't just holding occasional hostages, he was running a private prison. "Lily, where do you think Uncle Arthur and the other men are?" The girls studied the property carefully. "Probably in the big house. That's where they take people who do things they don't like." During the afternoon, they observed the guards' movement patterns. Lily demonstrated an impressive ability to memorize schedules and routes, identifying windows of opportunity when certain areas were temporarily unguarded. At 4 o'clock, the man who guards the small house goes to the big house for coffee, she explained. He's there for 15 minutes, always. "How do you know that?" "Because I watched last time. I always watch everything when I'm in dangerous places." At 4 o'clock sharp, exactly as Lily predicted, the guard left his post. It was the chance they had been waiting for. They ran across the farm grounds, staying low and using the trees for cover. When they reached the smaller house, Lily showed Eleanor how to climb through the window without making a sound. "Who's there?" whispered the young woman when she saw them entering the room. "We came to help," said Eleanor. "I'm Eleanor, and this is Lily. We're trying to get everyone out of here. My name is Patricia. This is my son, Leo." The woman hugged the baby tighter. "I've been here for 2 months. They brought me here because my husband couldn't pay a debt. How many other people are trapped here?" "There are 12 of us in total, 8 women and 4 children. Some have been here for almost a year." Lily approached the baby, who stopped crying when he saw her face. "He's cute," she said. "When we get out of here, he can play outside." "Do you really think you can get us out of here?" "We'll try," Eleanor promised. "But first, we need to find my husband and the men who came with us." Patricia pointed towards the main house. "They brought 3 men this morning. They're in the basement of the big house. I heard the screams." Eleanor's heart sank. Gerald was torturing Arthur, Lionel, and John for information, or simply for revenge. "Patricia, can you discreetly tell the other women? Tell them to get ready to leave quickly when we give the signal." "What signal?" "When the light in the main house goes out," said Lily. "I'm going to make that happen." "How?" "I know where the fuse box is. I saw when the men had to fix it last week." Eleanor looked at Lily with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Honey, it's too risky for a child. I'm small and fast. I can get there without being seen. What if they catch you? They won't catch me. I learned to be invisible on the streets." After making sure Patricia would alert the other prisoners, Eleanor and Lily headed for the main house. The plan was simple. Lily would cut the power, creating enough confusion for Eleanor to find and free Arthur and the others. The fuse box was on the outside of the house, partially hidden by bushes. Lily crawled over to it with the agility of someone who had learned to move undetected. In a few minutes, the entire property plunged into darkness. The chaos was immediate. Shouts and curses echoed from the main house, followed by the sound of flashlights being turned on and men running to check the problem. Eleanor took advantage of the confusion to enter the house from the back. The interior was dimly lit only by the light of a few flashlights, and she could hear Gerald yelling orders for his men to fix the power. She found the entrance to the basement and cautiously descended the wooden steps. At the bottom of the stairs, she found a scene that made her blood boil with anger. Arthur, Lionel, and John were tied to chairs with clear marks of beatings. Arthur had a black eye and dried blood on the corner of his mouth, but he was conscious. "Eleanor," he whispered, barely believing his eyes. "What are you doing here?" "Saving you," she replied, starting to cut the ropes with a knife she had found in the kitchen. "It's too dangerous. Gerald has men everywhere, not for long. Lily is creating a diversion." When she managed to free the 3 men, Eleanor helped them up from the basement. Arthur could barely stand, but he insisted on walking on his own. "Where's Lily now?" he asked, worried. "She should be waiting at the meeting point we arranged." But when they left the house, they found Lily surrounded by 2 of Gerald's men near the fuse box. The girl had managed to cut the power, but was caught trying to escape. "Don't move!" shouted one of the men, holding Lily firmly. A very clever child, this one. Knew exactly where to cut the wires. Gerald appeared a few seconds later, carrying a powerful flashlight that illuminated the entire group. "What a touching family reunion," he said, with his cruel smile. "The whole family together again." "Leave the girl alone," said Arthur, trying to get closer. "She has nothing to do with this. On the contrary, she has everything to do with this. She's a witness to crimes that could cause me serious problems." Gerald approached Lily, "And she's shown today that she's much more dangerous than I imagined. What do you want from us?" "I've already explained, Mr. Miller. I want my company, your cooperation, and your permanent silence. And now, after all the trouble you've caused me, the price has gone up. How much? Everything. Your company, your savings, your house, and in return, I'll allow your family to live." Arthur looked at Eleanor, pregnant and determined, at Lily, small but brave, and made his decision. "All right, I accept your conditions." "No!" shouted Lily, breaking free from the man holding her with a quick move she had learned on the streets. "Uncle Arthur, he won't keep his promise." Before anyone could react, the girl ran towards Gerald, and in a move no one expected, pushed him with all her might against the exposed electrical box. What happened next would change everything forever. The impact of Gerald against the electrical box created an explosion of sparks that lit up the entire property like fireworks. The man screamed in pain as the electric current coursed through his body before passing out and falling heavily to the ground. The shock had been strong enough to leave him unconscious, but not lethal. "Lily!" shouted Eleanor, running to the girl who had fallen a few feet away from the force of her own attack. The child was conscious but clearly dazed. "Pretty lady, did I hurt the bad man?" "You knocked him out, honey. You were very brave." Gerald's men were paralyzed for a few seconds, unsure how to react to their leader's fall. This hesitation was all Arthur, Lionel, and John needed to react. John, despite his injuries, still had his ex-military instincts. He took advantage of the confusion to disarm the nearest man, while Lionel and Arthur subdued the other 2 guards in the area. "The small house!" shouted Lily, pointing to where the imprisoned women and children were. "They're waiting for our help." Eleanor ran towards the smaller house, where she found Patricia and the other women, already gathered with their children, ready to flee as planned. "It's time to go," said Eleanor. "We all have to leave together now." What followed was a chaotic but efficient rescue operation. Arthur, though injured, helped carry the smaller children, while Lionel and John escorted the women through the dark fields. Lily, despite her young age, took on the role of guide, leading the entire group through the same secret paths she had used to reach the farm. "This way," she whispered, pointing out shortcuts between the coffee plantations. "We have to be quick, because other bad men might come." From the city, during the walk through the rural darkness, devastating stories emerged from the freed women. Carla, a 22-year-old, had been kidnapped when her father couldn't pay back loans taken for her mother's medical treatment. Marina, 35, had been imprisoned for 8 months because she had witnessed Gerald assaulting a shopkeeper who refused to pay protection money. "He keeps people as collateral," Patricia explained to Eleanor while carrying her baby. "When someone owes him money or knows information that could harm him, he kidnaps family members to have total control." "How many people do you think he keeps imprisoned?" "On other properties. From the comments I heard from the guards, there must be at least 3 other places like this." The revelation made Arthur realize they had only discovered the tip of a criminal iceberg much larger than they had imagined. When they reached the main road, John used the cell phone he had recovered from one of the guards to call trusted contacts in the federal police. "Colonel Ribeiro. It's John Bryant. I need an emergency operation. We have evidence of a kidnapping and false imprisonment network in the state." 2 hours later, the road was filled with police cars, ambulances, and vans from the prosecutor's office. The operation mobilized more than 40 federal agents who surrounded Three Brothers Farm and associated properties simultaneously. Gerald was found still unconscious near the electrical box, with superficial burns but no serious injuries. When he awoke, he was handcuffed to a hospital bed under police custody. The documents that Arthur, Lionel, and John had photographed in the warehouse proved to be a goldmine for investigators. Gerald's criminal operation spanned 5 cities, involved 37 people held in false imprisonment, and had ramifications that included 3 police captains, 2 judges, and a public prosecutor. "Mr. Miller," said Federal Detective Marcus Oliveira, "the evidence you collected is enough to dismantle this entire organization. Gerald and 23 accomplices have already been arrested, and the people he held hostage? All have been freed and are receiving medical and psychological care. Many had been imprisoned for over a year." In the following weeks, as the legal proceedings unfolded, the lives of Arthur, Eleanor, and Lily slowly began to return to normal. They moved temporarily into a rented apartment while they decided what to do with the company and the house they had lost during the crisis. "Uncle Arthur," said Lily one morning, "are you sad because you lost the company?" Arthur, who was reading news about Gerald's trial, looked at the girl who was drawing at the kitchen table. "No, honey. Companies can be rebuilt. Families can't. And are we a real family now? We are the realest family there is." Eleanor, who was in the kitchen preparing lunch, smiled upon hearing the conversation. Her pregnancy was progressing normally, and the doctor had confirmed that both she and the baby were perfectly healthy. "Lily," she called, "have you thought about what name you want to give your little brother or sister? If it's a boy, I want to name him Leo, like Aunt Patricia's baby. If it's a girl, I want to name her Hope, because that's what you gave me." The answer deeply moved Eleanor and Arthur. At 4 years old, Lily had developed an emotional wisdom that many adults never achieve. 3 months later, news arrived that definitively changed their outlook on the future. Arthur's lawyer called with surprising information. "Mr. Miller, the court has ruled that all assets seized in the operation against Gerald be used as compensation for the victims. This includes the full return of your company and properties." "What do you mean?" Gerald kept meticulous records of all the extortion he committed. The money he stole from dozens of people over the years was located in secret bank accounts. There are enough funds to compensate all the victims and still have some left over for social projects. Arthur could hardly believe what he was hearing. Not only would he recover everything he had lost, but he would have the resources to expand the charitable projects Eleanor loved so much. "And there's something else," the lawyer continued. the federal prosecutor's office is offering you the coordination of a federal program to combat human trafficking and false imprisonment. It would be based on your experience and would have a federal budget. When Arthur told Eleanor and Lily the news, the reaction was a mix of euphoria and tears of joy. "Does this mean we can help many children like me?" asked Lily. "It means we can help many families like ours," Eleanor replied. "And that you're going to be our official expert consultant on locating missing persons," Arthur joked, tickling Lily. 6 months later, the family was settled in a new, larger house, which also served as the headquarters for the Family of Hope project. Eleanor coordinated a social assistance network that served 5 cities in the region. Arthur had rebuilt his company with a focus on low-income housing for vulnerable families. And Lily had become the project's official mascot, using her street experience to help social workers locate and approach abandoned children. "Pretty lady," said Lily one afternoon, watching Eleanor rock the newborn Leo. The name she had chosen had been unanimously approved. "Do you think when I grow up I can work saving children like you saved me?" "I'm sure you'll save many children, honey. You have a special gift for it. And will baby Leo help me?" "Of course he will. You'll be the bravest brother-sister team in the world." That night, as the whole family slept peacefully in the house that was truly a home, Arthur reflected on how a desperate search for his missing wife had turned into the discovery of a family he didn't even know he was looking for. Lily had come into their lives as a frightened witness to a terrible crime. She was leaving her childhood as a beloved daughter, a proud older sister, and a future defender of vulnerable children. Eleanor had started the story as a lost woman, trying to save the world alone and nearly destroying her family in the process. She ended as the leader of a social movement that would truly change the lives of thousands. And Arthur had started as a businessman, obsessed with profits, oblivious to the suffering around him. He had discovered that true wealth lay in the ability to use his resources to create opportunities for dignity for others. Outside the window, the first rays of a new day began to illuminate the garden where Lily would play with Leo when he grew up. And in the branches of the trees surrounding the house, colorful birds sang as if celebrating the miracle of a family that had found itself through courage, love, and the determination to never give up on each other. The story that had begun with cries of pain and despair ended with songs of hope and joy. And at the center of it all, a 4-year-old girl who had proven that even the smallest children can change the world when they find people willing to believe in them and fight by their side. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story, giving it a score from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.